The grand hall fell silent as Li Meithan entered. The imposing chamber, with its semicircular arrangement and violet illumination from the AI monitoring system, seemed to hold its breath. This was a historic moment, the first time a human would sit as an observer in the Galactic Council after centuries of humanity's struggle to be recognized. Li Meithan walked with measured steps toward the designated seat. The metal nameplate gleamed with the engraved word Earth in multiple intergalactic languages. Around her, representatives from over 30 alien species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Some whispered among themselves, their voices carrying in the vast chamber, despite their attempts at discretion. They really invited a human? What will we do if this is a mistake? The chamber's design was intimidating by intention. A semicircular auditorium with 24 high seats arranged on an elevated platform. The ceiling emanated the distinctive purple light of the Seraphim AI surveillance system, casting an otherworldly glow over the proceedings. The floor was crafted from Aran white birch, a material known for its resonance with thought patterns, while the chairs featured frames of lavar metal, an alloy resistant to spatial acceleration and telepathic interference. Li Mei straightened her formal diplomatic attire, a blend of traditional Asian elements and futuristic design that represented Earth's cultural heritage and technological advancement. She was acutely aware that every gesture, every expression would be scrutinized and judged. Hino Karis, the session chairperson and representative of the highly respected turtle-like Karis species, raised a crystalline gavel. His shell gleamed with embedded technology that pulsed with each heartbeat. "The council will come to order," he announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. "Today marks a significant milestone in galactic relations. For the first time, a human representative joins us as an observer." More whispers erupted, but Hinokaris silenced them with a firm tap of his gavel. "We will maintain proper decorum. Ambassador Li Meithan, please take your seat and introduce yourself to the council." Li Mei approached the observer's chair, noticeably different from the others with its lavar metal trim, a subtle indication of the precautions taken for the human representative. As she sat down, the entire room fell into an eerie silence. Dozens of alien eyes fixed upon her, assessing, judging, wondering. The silence was deafening. She took a deep breath and activated the translator embedded in her collar, a device that would render her words into the standard galactic common language, while preserving the nuances of her intended meaning. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "I am honored to represent Earth and humanity as an observer in this historic session. For centuries, humans have looked to the stars with wonder and hope. Today, we take our first official step into the greater galactic community." A ripple of movement passed through the assembly. Li Mei continued, undeterred. "Earth has overcome many challenges on our journey to this moment. We have weathered internal conflicts, environmental crises, and technological revolutions. Through it all, we have maintained our core values of diversity, innovation, and the pursuit of knowledge. We come to this council not only to learn from your collective wisdom, but also to contribute our unique perspective to our shared future." She paused, scanning the faces around her. Some showed skepticism, others curiosity, and a few, very few, displayed what might be interpreted as support. "As observer, I pledge to listen more than I speak, to understand before seeking to be understood, and to uphold the principles that unite us across our biological, cultural, and technological differences." Tarix, a representative of the insectoid collective, a species with a fearsome appearance that belied their sophisticated culture, rose from his seat. His exoskeleton clicked as he adjusted his position. "Pretty words from a species known for its destructive tendencies," he said, mandibles flexing in what translated as skepticism. The historical records show that humans nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times before achieving space travel. How can we trust such an unpredictable species in matters of galactic governance? Before Li Mei could respond, Dre Li, the amphibious representative from the water world Zakwar, joined in. His gill structures pulsated with agitation. I concur with Representative Tarks. Humans have demonstrated alarming patterns of industrialization that devastated their ecosystems. We have concerns about allowing such tendencies to influence galactic environmental policies. Li Mei maintained her composure, though her heart raced. This was the resistance she had been prepared for, but experiencing it firsthand was still jarring. Representatives, I acknowledge humanity's past mistakes, she replied. However, I would remind the Council that every spacefaring species has faced similar challenges during their development. What defines us is not our errors, but our capacity to learn from them. Earth has implemented comprehensive ecological restoration programs and sustainable development practices over the past century. Our current environmental harmony could provide valuable insights for worlds facing similar transitions. From across the chamber, a representative with crystalline features that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns raised a luminescent appendage. This was Cadrix, known for their belief in diversity as a fundamental strength. If I may speak, Cadrix said, their voice melodious and multi-toned. The human representative makes a valid point. Our own historical records confirm Earth's remarkable progress in ecological restoration. Moreover, humans have demonstrated exceptional adaptability and innovative approaches to medical sciences. Their inclusion could accelerate breakthroughs in biochemical research that would benefit all Council species. This support from Cadrix, a respected elder species, seemed to shift the atmosphere slightly. Yet the tension remained palpable as Velkar, the senior ambassador of the arachnoid Ithric species, leaned forward in his chair. 8 eyes glittered with intelligence and calculation. The Ithric Collective questions the timing of this invitation, Velkar stated, his voice a silky whisper that nonetheless carried throughout the chamber. Humanity has been part of the scientific and cultural exchange program for barely 3 centuries, a mere moment in cosmic time. Other species waited millennia for observer status. What? Special qualities. Do humans possess to warrant such accelerated admission? The implication was clear. Velkar was suggesting some form of preferential treatment or manipulation. Li Mei recognized the dangerous territory this line of questioning entered. Ambassador Velkar, she responded carefully. The Council's invitation to Earth was based on established criteria, including technological advancement, diplomatic engagement, and contributions to interspecies research. The timing reflects not preferential treatment, but rather humanity's focused efforts to meet these standards. We have prioritized galactic integration over internal expansion, demonstrating our commitment to collective progress rather than species-centric development. Velkar's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement or irritation. The translator struggled with the nuance. Before the discussion could continue, the Seraphim AI system emitted a soft chime, followed by an announcement in neutral tones. Alert! Identity verification anomaly detected. Biometric patterns for observer Li Mei Than show inconsistencies with established human parameters. The chamber erupted in murmurs and exclamations. Li Mei felt her blood run cold. She had undergone extensive biometric registration procedures before arriving at the Council station. An anomaly now could only be deliberate interference. Hinocaris raised his gavel again. Order! We will address this systematically. Seraphim, specify the nature of the anomaly. The AI's voice resonated through the chamber. Neural pattern fluctuations exceed standard human parameters by 7.3%. Possible explanations include technological augmentation, genetic modification, or data corruption. Li Mei maintained her composure. though inwardly she recognized the strategic timing of this discovery. Just as she had begun to establish credibility, this accusation threatened to undermine everything. "Chairperson Karras," she said firmly, "I assure the Council that I have undergone no unauthorized augmentations or modifications. I request a full diagnostic of the Seraphim system and a secondary verification scan." Velkar's voice cut through the chamber. "Perhaps while this investigation proceeds, we should review some relevant historical context about our human guests." Without waiting for approval, he activated his console. The central holographic display flickered to life, showing footage of Earth's historical conflicts, nuclear detonations, chemical warfare, environmental disasters, a carefully curated selection highlighting humanity's darkest moments without the context of their resolution or the learning that followed. "Is this the species we wish to elevate to our council?" Velkar asked, his voice dripping with false concern. "One that turns on its own kind with such savagery? One that poisons its own nest?" Li Mei stood, her patience tested, but her diplomatic training holding firm. "Ambassador Velkar, these selective images present a distorted view of human history. They show conflicts that ended generations ago, without acknowledging the peace and restoration that followed. If we applied the same selective approach to Ithric history, what moments might we choose to highlight?" A dangerous gambit, but one that caused Velkar to pause. Several council members shifted uncomfortably, aware of the bloody territorial disputes that marked early Ithric expansion. Hino Karras intervened. "This display was not authorized as part of today's agenda. We will adjourn for 30 minutes while Seraphim completes a diagnostic and verification process. Ambassador Than, you are permitted to communicate with Earth during this interval." As the council members dispersed, Li Mei activated her secure quantum communicator. The holographic figure of Earth Ambassador Nguyen Dio An appeared before her, a woman whose stern expression softened slightly upon seeing Li Mei. "The opposition is moving more quickly than we anticipated," Ambassador Nguyen said without preamble. "How severe is the situation?" Li Mei summarized the events concisely. "They've manipulated the Seraphim system to flag biometric inconsistencies and are showing selective historical footage to create bias. Velkar appears to be orchestrating it, but I suspect broader involvement." Ambassador Nguyen's expression hardened. "We expected resistance, but this suggests coordination at the highest levels. You must remain calm and collected. Li Mei, don't allow provocations to drive emotional responses. Earth cannot afford to reinforce stereotypes of human volatility." "I understand the stakes," Li Mei replied, a hint of frustration in her voice. "But if they've compromised Seraphim, the verification process could be rigged against me regardless of my actions." "Seek allies," Ambassador Nguyen advised. "The Cadrics have already spoken in your favor. And remember, humans have overcome far worse challenges than a suspicious AI and a prejudiced spider." The communication ended, leaving Li Mei alone with her thoughts. She needed to find support, and quickly. Outside the main chamber, the delegates had broken into small clusters, discussing the unexpected developments. Li Mei approached Cadrix, who stood somewhat apart from the others, light refracting through their crystalline form in what appeared to be contemplation. "Representative Cadrix," Li Mei began, "thank you for your support earlier." The crystalline being shifted, colors flowing through their form in patterns that suggested acknowledgement. "Your species faces significant prejudice, Ambassador Than, not unlike my own ancestors when they first joined the Galactic community." "May I ask what changed for your people?" Li Mei inquired. "We proved our value through actions, rather than words," Cadrix replied. "When the Solanine plague threatened multiple worlds, our biochemists developed the cure. The Council remembered who stood with them in crisis." Li Mei nodded thoughtfully. "Unfortunately, I don't have a galactic plague to solve in the next 20 minutes." A sound emanated from Cadrix that the translator rendered as laughter. Perhaps not, but you do have allies who understand technology. Cadrix gestured subtly toward a humanoid figure of metallic composition, observing from nearby. Eon 5, representative of the Vega Synthetic Collective. They understand AI systems better than most organic beings. Li Mei approached the android representative, whose form gleamed with an iridescent sheen that suggested advanced materials beyond Earth's current technology. Eon 5's face bore humanoid features, yet was distinctly artificial, with glowing blue optical sensors that tracked her approach. "Ambassador Than," Eon 5 greeted her, voice modulated to perfect neutrality. "I observed the irregularities in Seraphim's behavior. The probability of natural biometric variants causing such an alert is approximately 0.0073%. You believe it was deliberate interference," Li Mei stated, rather than asked. "I calculate a 97.2% probability of external manipulation," Eon 5 confirmed. "The timing and specificity suggest a targeted attack rather than system error." "Can you help me prove this?" Li Mei asked directly. The android's optical sensors flickered briefly, their equivalent of considering options. Directly accessing Seraphim without authorization would violate Council protocols. However, I can provide diagnostic parameters that would reveal tampering if implemented during the verification process. As Eon 5 transferred the technical specifications to Li Mei's datapad, a shadowy figure approached from an adjacent corridor. The being wore ceremonial robes that obscured most of their features, with a mask covering their face. Only the designation MV Path appeared on their council identification. "Ambassador Than," the figure spoke in a voice that seemed deliberately distorted. "A word in private, if you would." Li Mei glanced at Eon 5, who gave a subtle nod. She followed MV Path to a recessed alcove away from the main gathering. "Your presence has accelerated certain processes within the Council," MV Path said once they were alone. "There are factions that have long sought reform but lacked a catalyst. Your admission serves as that catalyst." "I'm not interested in becoming a pawn in internal Council politics," Li Mei replied carefully. "Yet you already are," MV Path countered. "The question is whether you will be a sacrificial pawn, or one that reaches the opposite end of the board to become something more powerful." The masked figure extended a data crystal. "This contains evidence of voting manipulation in 3 previous council sessions. The same technique will likely be employed against you today." Li Mei hesitated before accepting the crystal. "Why help me?" "Reform requires disruption," MV Path said simply. "Humans excel at disruption." Before Li Mei could press further, MV Path melted back into the shadows of the corridor. She examined the crystal briefly, before securing it in an inside pocket of her diplomatic attire. A melodious tone signaled the end of the recess. As delegates returned to the chamber, Li Mei noticed another figure approaching, a reptilian being with iridescent scales and eyes that seemed to see beyond physical reality. This was Vorka, representative of the Serpentis Confederation, known for their limited psychic abilities. "Your thoughts are troubled, human," Vorka observed, voice a sibilant whisper. "But clear, remarkably clear for a species so young." Li Mei inclined her head respectfully. "Thank you, Representative Vorka." "They underestimate you," the reptilian continued. "They see only your physical fragility, not the adaptability that has allowed your kind to survive on a world of constant change." "Will you support my petition for verification?" Li Mei asked directly. Vorka's tongue flicked out briefly, a gesture the translator did not interpret. "I will support truth, wherever it leads. Be warned, there are darker currents moving beneath these proceedings than mere prejudice against newcomers." With that cryptic statement, Vorka moved toward their seat in the chamber. Li Mei followed, conscious of the increasing complexity of the political landscape she had entered. As the delegates settled, Hino Karus called the session back to order. Seraphim has completed its diagnostic. Report findings. The AI's voice filled the chamber. Initial anomaly confirmed. However, extended analysis indicates potential external data manipulation. Authentication protocols have been compromised within the past 14 standard hours. Murmurs swept through the assembly. Velkar rose immediately. "This is most concerning," he said, voice honeyed with false sincerity. "If the systems have been compromised, can we trust any verification process? Perhaps we should postpone the observer certification until a full security audit can be completed, a process that could take several standard months." Li Mei recognized the strategy, delay that would effectively neutralize Earth's participation. She stood. "Chairperson Karras, if I may," she began. "Representative Eon 5 has provided me with specialized diagnostic parameters that could identify the source of the tampering. I request permission to implement these parameters through the verification system." Velkar's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Absolutely not. We cannot allow an unverified observer to access core systems, especially with assistance from a synthetic representative who may have ulterior motives." Eon 5 rose, their metallic form catching the purple light. "My diagnostic parameters can be reviewed by any council member before implementation. They are designed to trace data pathways, not alter them." Hino Karras considered this. "The parameters will be reviewed by 3 neutral technicians, then implemented if deemed safe. This compromise serves both security and expediency." Though Velkar protested further, the motion carried. 3 technical specialists examined Eon 5's diagnostic tools and, finding them legitimate, incorporated them into Seraphim's verification process. The chamber waited in tense silence as Seraphim processed the new parameters. After several minutes, the AI announced, "Diagnostic complete. External manipulation confirmed. Trace signature indicates access from Terminal 7B, located in the administrative section reserved for senior ambassadors." All eyes turned to Velkar, whose terminal designation matched the specified location. "This is outrageous," Velkar exclaimed, rising to his full height. "I demand a full investigation. This human has clearly fabricated evidence to discredit me." Li Mei remained calm. "I have not accessed any terminal since arriving at the station, as security logs will confirm. However, I do have evidence suggesting this is not an isolated incident." She revealed the data crystal provided by MV-Path. "With the chair's permission, I would like to submit this for analysis. It contains records of similar manipulations in previous council sessions." Velkar's composure cracked. "This is a conspiracy. Earth is too primitive to understand our protocols. They must have been helped by traitors within the council." Vorka spoke, his voice cutting through the growing chaos. "I sense fear from Ambassador Velkar, not indignation. Fear of discovery." "How dare you use psychic abilities during formal proceedings?" Velkar hissed. "This violates privacy protocols." "I made no direct psychic probe," Vorka replied smoothly. "I merely observed emotional emanations, which are permissible under Section 14 of Council Procedure." Hino Karras tapped his gavel firmly. "This session has devolved beyond productive discourse. We will proceed directly to a preliminary vote on Ambassador Than's observer status, followed by a full investigation into these security breaches." Electronic voting interfaces glowed to life on each delegate's console. Li Mei watched nervously as representatives cast their votes, a process that took nearly 10 minutes as each considered their position. When the results appeared on the central display, Li Mei's heart sank. Only 40% had voted in favor of confirming her observer status, with 45% against and 15% abstaining. "The vote fails to achieve a majority in either direction," Hino Karras announced. "Per council procedure, we will conduct a secondary vote after a 1-hour deliberation period." As delegates dispersed for the second recess, Li Mei felt a crushing weight of responsibility. She had 1 hour to shift the balance, or Earth's first opportunity for representation would end in humiliating rejection. She was approached almost immediately by MV Path, who materialized from a side corridor. "The situation is worse than it appears," the masked figure said without preamble. "Velkar's faction intends to use the voting period to remove several of your supporters from the proceedings on procedural grounds." "On what basis?" Li Mei demanded. "They will claim that Cadrix violated neutrality by providing technical assistance through Eon 5, and that Vorka's psychic observation constituted unauthorized mental intrusion." Li Mei processed this information quickly. "They're using our defense against Velkar's manipulation as a pretext to eliminate allies." "Precisely," MV Path confirmed. "But there is a counter-strategy. The core of their power lies in controlling Seraphim. If you expose the full extent of the manipulation, not just of your biometric data, but of the voting system itself, the entire council structure will be forced into emergency reformation." "That's an extreme solution," Li Mei observed. "It could destabilize interstellar relations for years." "Sometimes healing requires surgical intervention," MV Path replied. "The alternative is a council increasingly controlled by Velkar's faction, which views Earth and several other emerging worlds as resources to be exploited, rather than partners in governance." Li Mei needed time to think, but time was precisely what she lacked. She sought out Eon 5, who was engaged in data exchange with several other synthetic representatives. "I need your assessment," she said, after explaining MV Path's warning. "Can we prove system-wide manipulation of Seraphim?" Eon 5's optical sensors pulsed rapidly. "With the diagnostic parameters already implemented, we have established a precedent for deeper system analysis. However, expanding the investigation to the voting system would require Council Chair authorization, which Hinokaris is unlikely to grant without substantial evidence," Li Mei concluded. "There is an alternative approach," Eon 5 suggested. "Rather than seeking authorization to investigate, we could request a public demonstration of voting system integrity, a standard security protocol that would automatically trigger comprehensive diagnostics." Li Mei considered this. Velkar would object immediately. His objection would itself be suspicious. Eon 5 countered. If he prevents a routine security verification, it implies knowledge of vulnerabilities. Li Mei nodded slowly. "A strategic trap. Force him to either allow the investigation or appear guilty by blocking it." She sought out Vorka next, finding the reptilian representative in a meditation chamber bathed in amber light. "Your mind remains remarkably focused despite the pressure," Vorka observed as she entered. "Most species exhibit mental fragmentation when facing such opposition. Humans have evolved to function under stress," Li Mei replied. "I need to understand something. You said there are darker currents beneath these proceedings. What did you mean?" Vorka's scales shifted color slightly, displaying patterns the translator didn't interpret. "The Council has grown complacent and corrupt over millennia. Species are admitted based on what resources they control, what technologies they can provide, what military advantages they offer. True diversity of thought is discouraged, despite public claims to the contrary." "And where does Earth fit in this calculation?" Li Mei asked. "That is what fascinates certain factions," Vorka explained. "Humans offer little in terms of unique resources or military might compared to established members. Yet your species possesses remarkable adaptability and creative problem-solving. Some fear these qualities as disruptive. Others see them as necessary for revitalization. You're saying Earth is a catalyst for change, regardless of whether I succeed or fail today." "Indeed. But the nature of that change, whether evolution or revolution, depends on what transpires in the next hour." With these insights weighing on her mind, Li Mei made her decision. She returned to the main chamber early, using the time to prepare her approach. As delegates filtered back in, she observed their groupings and interactions, noting who spoke with Velkar and who deliberately avoided him. When Hinokaris called the session to order, Li Mei requested the floor immediately. Chairperson, before we proceed with the secondary vote, I formally request a standard security verification of the voting system, as outlined in Protocol 37 of Council Procedures. The chamber fell silent. Velkar rose slowly. This is an obvious delay tactic, he protested. The human representative seeks to postpone a vote she is likely to lose. Li Mei maintained her composure. Security verification is a routine procedure that typically requires less than 15 minutes. If the system is functioning properly, we can proceed with the vote immediately afterward. I merely wish to ensure that the result, whatever it may be, accurately reflects the will of the Council. Hinokaris considered the request. Protocol 37 does permit any delegate or observer to request verification prior to critical votes. The request is granted. Seraphim, initiate standard security verification of the voting system. Verification initiated. The AI responded. Estimated completion time, 12 minutes. The atmosphere in the chamber grew increasingly tense as Seraphim conducted its analysis. Delegates shifted uncomfortably, some exchanging worried glances, others maintaining studied neutrality. Finally, Seraphim announced, verification complete. Anomalies detected in vote tabulation algorithms. Unauthorized modifications identified in primary counting protocols. Modification signature matches. Terminal 7B access pattern. The implications were clear. Evidence now linked Velkar not only to the manipulation of Li Mei's biometric data, but also to potential vote tampering. This is fabricated evidence, Velkar shouted, rising to his full height. The human and her synthetic allies have corrupted Seraphim to frame me. Several other delegates from Velkar's faction rose in support, creating a cacophony of accusations. 1. An Elcor representative with glowing electronic components integrated into their physical form went so far as to activate a personal energy shield, suggesting they anticipated violence. Hinokaris struck his gavel repeatedly, the crystalline sound cutting through the chaos. Order! This council will not descend into anarchy. When the chamber finally quieted, Karis continued. These are serious allegations with evidence that cannot be dismissed. I am invoking Emergency Protocol 5, which places all voting systems under direct supervision of an independent verification committee and suspends the authority of any delegate implicated in system manipulation pending investigation. Velkar's mandibles clicked furiously. You exceed your authority, Chairperson. This is a coup orchestrated by Earth sympathizers. I follow council procedure precisely, Karis replied firmly. If you are innocent, the investigation will exonerate you. Until then, your voting privileges and system access are suspended. The central display activated, showing a complex network of communications and access attempts. The visual evidence of coordinated manipulation was damning. Connections between Velkar's terminal and multiple system access points over recent weeks, culminating in the tampering with Li Mei's biometric data and the voting system. How convenient that this evidence appears just as you attempt to remove me, Velkar hissed. When did the great Hinokaris become a puppet of Earth interests? Karis remained unperturbed. The evidence speaks for itself. However, before we proceed further, I will grant Ambassador Than the right to address the Council one final time before the revote. Li Mei stood, aware that this moment would define not just her future, but Earth's relationship with the galactic community for generations to come. The chamber fell silent once more, as all eyes turned to her, a human, standing alone amidst the diversity of the cosmos. Esteemed representatives, she began, her voice steady and clear. Today has revealed challenges that run deeper than my application for observer status. We have witnessed attempts to manipulate not just data about an individual, but the very systems that ensure the Council's integrity. She paused, making eye contact with various delegates before continuing. I ask you to see humanity not through the lens of our past conflicts, but through our commitment to building peace and sharing knowledge with all species. Our history, like that of every spacefaring civilization, contains chapters of violence and misunderstanding, but it also contains triumph over division, healing of environmental wounds, and the transcendence of artificial boundaries. Several delegates nodded slightly, encouraging her to continue. We are members of an interstellar community, a community that cannot function if small factions are permitted to determine the fate of the majority through deception and manipulation. The principles that unite us, diversity, transparency, collective wisdom, must be defended, not as abstract ideals but as practical foundations for governance. Li Mei gestured to the room at large. I stand before you not merely as Earth's representative, but as a voice for emerging worlds that deserve fair consideration. I ask not for special treatment, but for equal application of the standards this council claims to uphold. She lowered her voice slightly, compelling delegates to lean forward to catch her words. Whatever you decide today, know that Earth remains committed to interstellar cooperation. We will continue to share our scientific discoveries, our cultural perspectives, and our unique approach to problem solving. We believe that diversity, true diversity, including diversity of thought, strengthens us all. As Li Mei returned to her seat, a thoughtful silence filled the chamber. It was broken by an alert from Seraphim. Critical system notification. Attempt to manipulate voting data detected and blocked. Security protocols engaged. Full audit trail available for review. A large display activated, showing real-time communication between several terminals. The evidence was unmistakable. Velkar and his allies were attempting to influence the revote, even as the proceedings continued. This is the final proof, Hinokaris declared, his voice heavy with authority. Seraphim, secure all compromised terminals and revoke access privileges for the identified delegates. The display showed multiple access points going dark as Seraphim implemented the command. Velkar and several other delegates found their consoles deactivated. This is unprecedented, Velkar protested. You cannot silence duly appointed representatives. I am protecting the integrity of the council, Karis replied firmly. Something you have systematically undermined. The investigation will proceed according to established protocols, with appropriate representation for all involved parties. Karis turned to address the full assembly. We will now conduct the revote on Ambassador Thon's observer status, with all security protocols in place and under independent verification. The voting interface is reactivated, excluding the compromised terminals. The process proceeded with methodical precision, each vote verified and tabulated under heightened security. When the results appeared, Li Mei could scarcely believe what she saw. 85% in favor, 10% against, with 5% abstaining. The council has spoken, Hinokaris announced. Li Mei Thon is confirmed as an official observer representing Earth. Furthermore, in light of the extraordinary circumstances and the dignity with which Ambassador Thon has conducted herself, I am invoking Chair's privilege to elevate her status from observer to full delegate, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in a mixture of applause, exclamations, and the various sounds of approval from diverse species. Even those who had voted against her seemed to accept the outcome, recognizing that the greater threat to council integrity had been exposed and contained. As the formal session concluded, delegates approached Li Mei individually. Even Dre Li and Tarks, who had been among her most vocal critics, came forward. Your species has surprised me, Tarks admitted, mandibles clicking in what the translator rendered as reluctant respect. I still have concerns about human impulsiveness, but your measured response to provocation suggests capacity for growth. Dre Li's gill structures pulsated gently. We will be watching Earth's environmental policies closely, Ambassador Thon. But today, you have demonstrated that humans understand the value of transparency and collective governance. Perhaps we can begin a dialogue on aquatic ecosystem management, where both our species have insights to share. Li Mei thanked each delegate graciously, building bridges with former opponents while strengthening connections with allies. Cadrix approached last, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that the translator interpreted as profound satisfaction. "You have catalyzed long overdue change," they said. "The Council has grown stagnant over centuries, vulnerable to manipulation by entrenched interests. Your presence, and the reaction it provoked, has exposed weaknesses that can now be addressed." "I never intended to become the center of political reform," Li Mei admitted. "The most effective catalysts rarely recognize their role until the reaction is well underway," Cadrix replied. "A comprehensive investigation of Council procedures has already begun, with support from MV Path and several other reform-minded delegates. We anticipate significant changes to voting protocols, AI oversight, and the ethical committee structure." As the chamber emptied, Li Mei found herself alone with Hinokarus, who approached with a deliberate gait that suggested the weight of his responsibilities. "You handled yourself with remarkable poise, Ambassador Than," he said. "Many species would have responded to such provocations with aggression or withdrawal. Humans have learned through bitter experience that both reactions ultimately fail." Li Mei replied, "Finding a third path is often challenging but necessary." Karus nodded, his ancient eyes reflecting wisdom accumulated over centuries. "The coming months will not be easy. Velkar's faction, though discredited, still holds influence in certain sectors. They will resist reforms and may seek retribution against Earth in subtle ways." "Earth has faced greater challenges," Li Mei said with quiet confidence. "We will navigate these political currents while remaining true to our principles." "I believe you will," Karus agreed. "That is precisely why I elevated your status to full delegate. The Council needs voices that balance idealism with pragmatism, especially as we enter this period of institutional reform." 1 week later, Li Mei stood in a windswept corridor of the Council station, gazing out at the vast expanse of space through a transparent section of the hull. Stars stretched into infinity, each potentially hosting worlds with their own unique forms of life and civilization. Somewhere in that cosmic panorama was Earth, small in the grand scale, yet now connected to the broader galactic community in ways previously unimaginable. How different this moment was from her first entry into the Council chamber, when silence had fallen at the mere sight of a human taking a seat among the galactic representatives. That silence had been born of suspicion and prejudice. Now, she had earned the right to be heard. Her communication device chimed softly. Ambassador Nguyen's holographic form appeared before her. "The diplomatic corps is buzzing with news of your success," Nguyen said, allowing a rare smile to cross her usually stern features. "You've accomplished more than we dared hope." Li Mei. "It came at a cost," Li Mei replied. "The Council is undergoing significant internal restructuring. Some factions see Earth as responsible for disrupting the status quo." "Change always faces resistance," Nguyen observed. "But you've secured humanity's place at the table. Now, we must prove worthy of it through consistent, principled engagement." "I've been thinking about next steps," Li Mei said. "The exposure of voting manipulation has created an opportunity to propose new transparency protocols. I'm drafting a framework based on Earth's diplomatic principles, adapted for interspecies application." "An excellent initiative," Nguyen approved. "Earth Central will provide whatever resources you need. This is just the beginning of our journey in galactic politics." After concluding the communication, Li Mei returned to her quarters to prepare for the upcoming session. Her workspace was filled with holographic displays showing Council procedures, species profiles, and policy drafts. She had spent every available moment since her confirmation studying and planning, determined to transform her unexpected elevation from controversy to constructive influence. A subtle tone announced a visitor. When Li Mei opened the door, she found MV-Path waiting, still concealed behind their ceremonial mask. "Ambassador Than," the mysterious figure greeted her. "I trust you are adjusting to your new responsibilities." "As well as can be expected," Li Mei replied, gesturing for the visitor to enter. "I'm grateful for your assistance during the confirmation crisis, though I still don't understand your motives." MV-Path moved with fluid grace, studying the work displayed around the room. "Let us say that I represent interests that benefit from balanced governance." The council had become dangerously imbalanced, vulnerable to capture by factions like Velkar's. "And now," Li Mei pressed, "now there is potential for meaningful reform," MV-Path replied. "The investigative committee has already uncovered evidence of manipulation extending back decades. Several senior delegates have resigned rather than face formal inquiry." Li Mei absorbed this information. "Will you reveal your identity now that the immediate crisis has passed?" "My effectiveness depends partly on anonymity," MV-Path said, a hint of amusement in their distorted voice. "Let me remain a resource you can call upon when official channels prove insufficient." After MV-Path departed, Li Mei reviewed her notes for the upcoming session. The first she would attend as a full delegate, rather than an observer. She had prepared statements on 3 key issues: ecological sustainability, technological exchange protocols, and the establishment of an ethics committee with representation from both established and emerging worlds. As she made final revisions, she reflected on the profound responsibility she now carried. Earth's voice would be heard in deliberations affecting trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. The decisions she participated in would shape interstellar relations for generations to come. Her terminal chimed, indicating it was time to depart for the chamber. Li Mei gathered her materials and straightened her formal attire, newly designed to incorporate her elevated status while retaining elements of Earth's cultural heritage. The corridors were busy with delegates and their aides, creating a tapestry of diverse forms, colors, and movements. Li Mei exchanged greetings with several, noting how the atmosphere had shifted from her first day. Where once there had been stares of curiosity or suspicion, now there were nods of acknowledgement and respect. She paused briefly before entering the chamber, recalling the silence that had fallen when she first took her seat. Today would be different. Today, humanity would not merely be observed. It would participate fully in shaping the destiny of the galactic community. Li Mei Than stepped forward with confidence, ready to ensure that Earth's voice, with its unique perspective on cooperation, diversity, and the delicate balance between progress and preservation, would contribute to a more transparent and equitable future for all species. As she entered the chamber and took her place at the newly assigned delegate's position, conversations continued uninterrupted. There was no silence, no collective intake of breath, no sudden focus on the human in their midst. She had become a recognized part of the council. Different, yes, but accepted. And in that simple continuation of normal proceedings, Li Mei recognized the greatest victory of all. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as an oddity to be scrutinized, but as a contributing member of the vast, complex tapestry of galactic civilization. The session began, and when Li Mei spoke, voices responded, agreeing, questioning, building upon her ideas. The silence was broken, replaced by the far more valuable currency of dialogue. Earth was no longer just watching from the shadows. It was helping to chart the course forward. In the vastness of the cosmos, a new chapter had begun.